Hello, my friends. Faith is more than just a belief. It is the foundation of healing, the bridge between pain and restoration. When we talk about healing, we often think of medicine, doctors, and treatments. While those are valuable and necessary, there is another force at work, a power that transcends human understanding, faith. Faith is not just wishful thinking or blind hope. It is the deep, unwavering trust in something greater than ourselves. It is the conviction that healing is not only possible, but already in motion, even when we can't see it. Throughout history, faith has been the anchor for those battling sickness, the light in the darkness of uncertainty. People who have experienced miraculous healing often share a common theme. They never lost faith. They chose to believe, even when their circumstances told them otherwise. Healing through faith doesn't mean ignoring medical help. Rather, it means believing that there is a divine force working alongside every remedy, every treatment, and every doctor's wisdom. Faith fuels resilience. It reminds us that we are not defined by our illness, by our pain, or by the diagnosis we receive. Our identity is not found in suffering, but in the unshakable truth that we are deeply loved and supported by something much greater. Many times we expect healing to happen instantly, but faith teaches us patience. It teaches us that sometimes healing is a process, one that requires trust in timing that is beyond our comprehension. Just because we don't see results immediately does not mean healing isn't taking place. Faith allows us to rest in the knowing that restoration is happening in ways we cannot see. What makes faith powerful in healing is that it aligns our mindset with possibility rather than limitation. When we believe in healing, our bodies respond to that belief. Science has shown that a positive mindset can enhance the healing process. When we are consumed with fear, worry, and negativity, our bodies become tense, our immune systems weaken, and stress takes over. But faith, true, deep faith, releases that tension. It replaces fear with peace, doubt with hope, and anxiety with confidence. When we trust in divine healing, we shift our focus from what is broken to what is being restored. We stop looking at our pain as permanent and start seeing it as a temporary challenge that is already being conquered. Faith also teaches us that healing is not just about the physical body. Sometimes the wounds we carry are emotional or spiritual, a sickness of the soul, pain from the past, brokenness from betrayal, fear of the future can weigh us down just as much as physical illness. True healing happens when we allow faith to work in every area of our lives. It means surrendering not just our bodies, but also our worries, our doubts, and our burden. It means trusting that the same power that can heal sickness can also heal heartbreak. Faith tells us that nothing is beyond restoration. No wound is too deep, no illness too strong, no past too broken for healing to take place. One of the most beautiful aspects of faith is that it is contagious. When we walk in faith, we inspire others to do the same. Imagine a world where instead of fear, we spread faith. Imagine what could happen if instead of repeating words of doubt, we spoke words of healing. I believe I am getting stronger every day. I trust that healing is already at work in my body. I am grateful for the restoration that is happening right now. These are not just affirmations, they are declarations of faith. And when we declare healing over our lives, we step into the reality of it. We align ourselves with the divine energy that has already promised us wholeness. At its core, faith is an act of surrender. It is choosing to let go of control and trust in something greater. It is refusing to be a prisoner of fear and instead becoming a warrior of hope. Healing is not just about removing sickness. It's about stepping into a new version of ourselves, one that is stronger, more resilient, and more connected to the power that sustains us. Whether healing comes instantly or unfolds over time, faith reminds us that we are never alone, that we are always supported, and that restoration is not a distant possibility, but a present reality. So, hold on to faith, Speak healing over your life and trust that even in your weakest moments, something powerful is working within you. Words are not just sounds or letters strung together. They are powerful forces that shape our reality. Every word we speak carries energy, an invisible vibration that influences not only our thoughts and emotions, but also our physical well-being. When we declare something over our lives, we are setting an intention, a direction for our future. Healing begins with the words we choose to speak. If we constantly say, "I will never get better," or "this illness is too strong," we are reinforcing that belief within our minds and bodies. But if we speak words of strength, faith, and restoration, we are aligning ourselves with the energy of healing. The Psalms teach us this truth repeatedly. They are filled with declarations of healing, protection, and renewal, showing us that the words we use have the power to shift our circumstances. Science has even confirmed what faith has always taught us. Words have a direct impact on the body. Studies in neuroscience and psychology reveal that our thoughts and spoken words influence our nervous system, immune response, and even the way our cells function. When we speak positively, our brain releases chemicals that promote healing and reduce stress. On the other hand, negative words trigger stress responses, weaken our immune system, and can even prolong illness. This means that the way we speak about our health is not just emotional, it's biological. When we affirm healing, when we declare that our bodies are strong and capable, we activate the body's natural ability to recover and regenerate. This is not about ignoring reality. It's about choosing to influence reality with the energy of our words. The Psalms are filled with healing affirmations that teach us how to speak life over ourselves. Psalm 1:7-20 says, "He sent out his word and healed them. He rescued them from the grave." This verse reminds us that healing starts with the spoken word. When we declare healing scriptures over our lives, we are not just reciting poetry, we are speaking divine truth into existence. Words of faith remind us that healing is possible, even when circumstances seem hopeless. They keep us focused on recovery rather than suffering, on restoration rather than decline. The Psalms give us a roadmap for shifting our language, replacing fear with trust, weakness with strength, and despair with hope. But it's not just the words we say out loud that matter, it's also the ones we whisper to ourselves in moments of doubt. Self-talk is one of the most powerful tools we have. If we wake up every day telling ourselves, "I am weak, I am tired, I am broken," those words sink into our subconscious, shaping the way we move through life. But when we shift our inner dialogue, when we start saying, "I am healing, I am strong, I am getting better every day," we rewire our mindset. We align ourselves with the energy of renewal. The Psalms encourage us to meditate on words of life, to fill our minds and hearts with divine truth, so that healing becomes not just a hope, but an expectation. Words do not just affect us, they affect those around us. When we speak life, we inspire others to do the same. Imagine a world where we replaced words of complaint with words of gratitude, where we spoke encouragement instead of doubt, where every person battling illness was surrounded by words of hope rather than fear. The energy of our words does not stay contained within us. It spreads. When we speak healing over others, when we uplift and encourage, we create an atmosphere where restoration can thrive. This is why faith communities gather to pray, why people come together to declare healing, because collective words have even greater power. The Psalms remind us that when voices unite in faith, miracles happen. At the end of the day, the words we choose are shaping our healing journey. Every day we have a choice to speak words that drain us or words that restore us. Healing is not just about medical treatment, it's about mindset, about the atmosphere we create with our words. If you are facing sickness, begin today by shifting your language. Speak life over yourself, declare the promises of healing. Let the energy of your words align with divine restoration. Because when you do, you are not just speaking, you are activating healing, inviting transformation, and stepping into the wholeness that has already been prepared for you. Lord my God, I called to you for help and you healed me. Psalm 32. There is a profound simplicity in this verse, yet within it lies a truth that has carried countless souls through their darkest hours. When sickness, pain, or struggle weighs heavily upon us, the most powerful thing we can do is call upon the divine healer. The act of calling on God is more than just asking for relief. It is an act of surrender, of faith, and of trust in something far greater than ourselves. Healing, both physical and emotional, often begins not in the body, but in the heart and mind. When we cry out to God, we acknowledge that we are not alone in our suffering. We recognize that our healing is not solely dependent on medicine, doctors, or human intervention. It is connected to the infinite power of divine love. This verse reminds us that God hears us when we call, that no cry for help goes unnoticed, and that healing is not just possible, but promised. The key to this verse is in the action of calling. Many times we hesitate to ask for help, thinking we need to handle our struggles alone. We carry our pain in silence, believing that admitting our weakness makes us vulnerable. But vulnerability is not a sign of defeat. It is the doorway to healing. Psalm 32 teaches us that healing begins when we choose to reach out, when we lift our voices in faith instead of hiding in fear. Calling on God is an invitation for divine intervention, a way of saying, I trust you with my pain, I trust you with my healing. Healing doesn't always come in the way we expect. Sometimes it is immediate and miraculous. Other times it unfolds gradually through a process of inner renewal. But the promise remains. Those who call upon the Lord will not be left in their suffering. What does it mean to be healed? Too often we limit healing to physical recovery, thinking that only when the body is whole again can we claim victory. But true healing is deeper than that. It is the restoration of the soul, the renewal of hope, the strengthening of faith. Some people find healing even in the midst of illness because their spirit has been lifted, their hearts have been transformed, and their connection with God has deepened. Psalm 32 reminds us that healing is not just about erasing pain, but about stepping into a greater peace. There are countless stories of people who, despite their suffering, radiate joy, faith, and strength. This is divine healing, the kind that sustains us even in our weakest moments. It is the kind of healing that allows us to stand in faith, even when circumstances have not yet changed. Faith is a crucial part of the healing process. Calling on God is not just about asking for something, it is about believing that the one we call on is listening. It requires us to let go of fear, to release our doubts, and to trust that God's timing and plan are perfect. This does not mean we ignore medicine or treatments. Rather, it means we recognize that healing is a partnership between divine power and human action. When we pray for healing, we align our hearts with the truth that God is our ultimate source of restoration. We move from despair to expectation, from hopelessness to faith. Healing may come through a doctor's hands, through a change in mindset, or through a divine miracle, but it always begins with faith. Psalm 32 also reminds us that healing is not just for us, it is meant to be shared. When we experience restoration, we are called to testify, to encourage others who are walking through their own valleys. Just as David, the psalmist, cried out and received healing, he wrote these words so that generations after him would know the power of God's love. Our healing is never just about us. It is a ripple effect that spreads to those around us. When we speak of God's goodness, when we share our stories of recovery, we become vessels of hope for others. Healing multiplies when we give thanks, when we recognize the work God is doing, and when we encourage others to call upon him as well. At its core, Psalm 32 is a promise, a reminder that we are never abandoned in our suffering. It is a call to trust, to believe, and to lean into the power of the divine healer. Whether our healing comes immediately or over time, whether it is physical, emotional, or spiritual, one thing is certain: God hears our cries. He responds with love, with grace, and with a plan that is always greater than what we can see. If you are in a season of pain, let this verse be your anchor. Call upon him. Speak words of faith. Trust in his timing. Because when we call, he answers. When we reach out, he restores. And when we place our healing in his hands, we open ourselves to a transformation far greater than we could ever imagine. Praise the Lord, my soul, and forget not all his benefits, who forgives all your sins and heals all your diseases. Psalm 13233. The opening verse of Psalm 103 is an invitation to remember the goodness of God, to pause in the midst of our busy lives and reflect on the countless blessings he has bestowed upon us. In times of struggle or uncertainty, it can be easy to forget the benefits of God's grace, especially when pain, hardship, or illness cloud our vision. Yet the psalmist reminds us to look back, to take inventory of God's faithfulness. When we remember what God has already done for us, we open the door to gratitude and healing. Forgetting his benefits leads to a sense of loss and despair, but remembering them draws us back to his peace and restores our faith. Each benefit mentioned in these verses, his forgiveness and his healing, are gifts that should continually shape our hearts and minds, fueling our trust in his ability to restore us in every way. The first benefit the psalmist highlights is God's forgiveness. To be forgiven is one of the greatest gifts we can experience, yet it is often something we overlook or take for granted. Sin, whether intentional or unintentional, creates a barrier between us and our Creator. It weighs on our hearts and minds, leaving us feeling unworthy, disconnected, and lost. But God, in his infinite mercy, forgives us completely. When we remember his forgiveness, we realize that no matter how far we may have strayed, we are always welcomed back with open arms. This forgiveness is not conditional. It is not based on our perfection, but on his love and grace. The more we reflect on this benefit, the more we are reminded that we are not defined by our past mistakes or failures. We are defined by his mercy and his willingness to extend grace, no matter how many times we fall. In remembering God's forgiveness, we also find a deeper understanding of his healing power. The forgiveness of sins and the healing of diseases are often linked in Scripture because they represent the fullness of God's redemptive work in our lives. Sin not only separates us from God spiritually, but also impacts our well-being physically and emotionally. Guilt, shame, and unresolved anger can manifest as stress, illness, and even chronic pain. But God does not simply forgive us and leave us in our brokenness. He heals us too. Psalm 133 reminds us that God is both our spiritual healer and our physical healer. His love and power reach into every part of us, the mind, the body, and the soul. When we remember this, we are reminded that healing is available to us in every area of life, not just in our physical bodies, but also in our emotions, relationships, and hearts. Healing is an act of divine restoration, not just in the sense of making us better, but in making us whole. God's healing encompasses everything that is broken, whether it's a physical ailment, an emotional wound, or a spiritual struggle. Sometimes healing comes quickly, and sometimes it takes time, but it always comes. Healing doesn't always look like an immediate cure or relief. Sometimes it appears as peace in the midst of the storm, as a heart that can forgive after deep pain, as strength in weakness, or as endurance in trial. Remembering God's healing power helps us shift our perspective on what healing truly is. It's not just the absence of pain, but the presence of peace, hope, and restoration. When we look back on the ways God has already healed us, whether it was a physical illness, a broken heart, or a troubled mind, we gain faith in his ability to heal whatever we face in the present and future. The act of remembering also compels us to give thanks. When we remember God's benefits, we are moved to worship. Praise becomes more than just words, it becomes a lifestyle. As we recount the forgiveness and healing we've received, our hearts are filled with gratitude. This gratitude shifts our focus away from what we lack to what we have. It changes our perspective on life's challenges. Instead of focusing solely on what is wrong, we start to notice what is right. We see how much God has already done, how he has already provided, how he has already healed, and how his love has always been there to carry us. This shift in perspective not only cultivates joy, but also deepens our relationship with God. When we remember his benefits, we are reminded that he is faithful, that he is with us in every season, and that his love is unchanging. Finally, Psalm 103:2-3 invites us to live with an attitude of anticipation for what God will continue to do. Reflecting on past benefits fuels our hope for the future. When we remember God's forgiveness and healing, we anticipate more of his grace, more of his restoration, and more of his miracles. God has already shown us his goodness, and because of that, we can trust that he will continue to pour out his benefits in our lives. He does not grow weary in doing good for his children. He is continually at work, healing and restoring, forgiving and renewing. By remembering his past benefits, we position ourselves to receive even more from him. Our faith grows stronger, our hearts become more open, and we move forward with the confidence that the same God who healed us before will continue to heal us, body, mind, and soul. The Lord sustains them on their sick bed and restores them from their bed of illness. Psalm 41:3. Psalm 41:3 speaks a powerful truth about the sustaining and restorative nature of God, especially in our times of weakness. It reminds us that even in our most vulnerable moments, God is near, providing the strength we need to endure. When sickness or struggle lays us low, it's easy to feel as though we have nothing left to offer, that our strength is depleted, and that we are beyond help. Yet in these very moments of perceived weakness, the Lord shows his greatest power. He sustains us, holding us up when we are unable to stand on our own. This verse challenges us to reconsider our understanding of strength. True strength that teaches us is not found in our ability to be self-sufficient or in our physical power, but in our ability to lean on God in our weakest moments and trust in his sustaining grace. There is an inherent vulnerability in sickness, in suffering, in moments when we cannot control our circumstances. It is in these times that our dependence on God becomes most apparent. Psalm 41:3 teaches us that it is okay to be weak. It is okay to be in need. Too often society encourages us to hide our struggles, to put on a brave face and push through our pain, as if vulnerability is a weakness. However, this verse tells a different story. The truth is that God meets us most powerfully in our vulnerability. Our weakness is not a place of shame, but a place of divine connection. When we are unable to carry ourselves, God's strength becomes most visible. He sustains us not because we are strong, but because we are willing to admit our need for him. The idea of being sustained on a sickbed is a beautiful image of God's presence in our pain. To be sustained means more than just surviving. It means being upheld, nurtured, and strengthened from within. God does not merely watch us from afar as we struggle. He actively participates in our healing and restoration. When we feel helpless, God comes close and holds us in a place of refuge. His strength becomes ours, lifting us when we cannot lift ourselves. This idea of divine sustenance is crucial because it shifts our perspective on suffering. Instead of viewing our pain as something that will ultimately break us, we can see it as an opportunity to experience God's sustaining grace in a new and intimate way. Every moment of weakness is a moment where we can rely on God's presence to carry us through. Healing is a process, and Psalm 41:3 also highlights the restorative nature of God's power. God doesn't just sustain us through our weakness, but he also restores us. Restoration, however, is not just about physical healing. It is about spiritual renewal and emotional recovery. We may experience physical pain or illness, but God's restorative power reaches far beyond the body. It touches our hearts, mending brokenness, strengthening faith, and deepening our connection to Him. Sometimes healing happens slowly, through time, through prayer, through inner transformation. But in every season, God is at work, restoring us from the inside out. When we embrace this restorative process, we allow God to work through our weakness, turning it into a place of greater strength, deeper peace, and renewed purpose. Psalm 41:3 offers us an important insight into how we perceive our own limitations. Too often we equate weakness with defeat, but in God's economy, weakness is a place where His power is made perfect. The Apostle Paul echoes this sentiment when he says in 2 Corinthians 12:9, "But he said to me, my grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." In times of difficulty, we have the opportunity to witness the truth of this verse, that our weakness does not disqualify us, but rather invites God's power to manifest more fully in our lives. There is no shame in needing help, no failure in admitting that we cannot go it alone. In fact, it is when we reach our limits that we open ourselves up to God's limitless power. Weakness is not an obstacle to God's grace. It is the very soil in which His grace can grow.